ideas for making work come from various places, usually from looking at a range of images. Sometimes, very rarely, I've had the strange experience of dreaming about having made a work and that work being successful and then finding a way to actually make that work happen. It's happened a few times. That seems like quite an insistent thing, but mostly I am looking and then want to respond to something that I've seen. In the instance of the de Kooning works, for example, I was re-seeing them because of certain artists in Australia who paint in similar ways being very present on the landscape, and that me wondering what was the particular appeal of that kind of painting. And then I set to work on responding differently to that kind of painting. I usually these days start with an image, and I would normally get that image from the internet. I'm very interested in the idea of the copy and how each copy is different. I used to be quite preoccupied with getting the best version of that image and the most correct version of that image, the most colour perfect version of that image. And now I just get a version of the image. And sometimes I get lots of versions of the image so I can see how they're appearing differently, but yeah, any old version will do. I start digitally and I start attending to that image using Photoshop. I think every artist uses Photoshop differently. For me, Photoshop is about a few tools. The select tool is quite important because I literally select parts of the image that I'm interested in translating. After I've imported patterns into the pattern library, I can then use them to make various images, and the images are basically areas that have been selected, and then they get filled with patterns that are particular colour ranges. I have become increasingly more transparent in what part the digital plays, I think. So now sometimes I make visible the paintbrush tool. They're scribbles, but they're scribbles that have very obviously been made using a mouse or a pen, because I want to make visible that digital part of the process because it's very important. Then I usually have to flatten the image because it's a huge file being layer upon layer upon layer, and that image is used to project and make a painting. Having decided on the scale that it's going to be at, and at the moment the de Kooning paintings, for example, are the exact scale of the original paintings, I then project that image so that I can draw it up and then paint it. The actual process of painting I don't do solo. I do with my very lovely assistant Savannah. I've worked with lots of assistants over the years. It's a part of my practice that I need help with because the paintings are incredibly detailed and laborious, and it's really exhausting to do that alone. It's not that kind of painting practice that I need to be involved in every single step of that. When it comes to finishing the painting, that's basically layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of paint and getting that exact. And it's usually in reference to the image I made, but at some point also make decisions beyond that digital image that's been made that have to do with whether the painting's working or not for me. Because of my interest in getting the paint surface to be flat and precise, the paintings are built up with flat layers, and the goal is for them to be of equal opacity, and that's not what paint does naturally. The pigments of various transparencies. So it's a very delicate and a very precise painting practice, and it's a very flat painting practice, and that means just a lot of time of building things up and then a very steady hand.